Hello, Lynette. Are we ready to go?
Yes, ready here.
Okay, let's kick off. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the December 4th, 2023 meeting of San Carlos Planning and Transportation Commission. We have tonight no AB 2447 requests, as all of our commissioners are here this evening in person. And with that, and also welcome to all those who might be following along from home. With that, would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Garvey.
Present.
Commissioner Castaneda.
Present.
Commissioner Roof.
Present.
Vice Chair Clements.
Present.
And Chair Iacopone.
Present. Very good. As we've been doing, I'd like to just remind all of the people who might be joining remotely and those here in present that the matter that members of the public, that this meeting is a limited public forum for public comment. Speakers must stay on topic if speaking to a particular agenda item, and if speaking during general public comment, they must address matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. If speakers fail to follow these rules or the city's rules on decorum and civility, they will be warned, and if they continue to disregard our rules, their opportunity to speak will be ended for the evening. So thank you very much. Item number 5 on our agenda, approval of the minutes from our meeting of the 6th of November. Commissioners, comments, additions, amendments? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the minutes of the November 6, 2023 Planning and Transportation Commission.
Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Garvey.
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda.
Yes.
Commissioner Roof.
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements.
Yes.
And Chair Iacopone.
Yes. Very good. Now on to our public hearing portion of this evening. The procedure for public hearing is that staff will present a report on the history, physical features, etc., on the application, followed with staff's recommendations. The applicant will make a presentation. Thereafter, interested members of the community may speak on the proposal. When all interested parties have had the opportunity to be heard, the hearing will then be closed and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The commission will then consider the evidence and make its recommendation. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those items you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this notice, the public notice, or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. Speakers should fill out a speaker form found by the door and hand it to the recording secretary prior to addressing the commission. The speaker should then come up when invited to the microphone to speak, since the meeting is being recorded, and this will assist staff in preparing the minutes. So our agenda item 6A is with regard to 99 Devonshire Boulevard, APN 049-331-020. And this is a public hearing to consider approving the design, review, and variance request to allow for a second-story addition to an existing one-story single-family residence within the normally required stream and front setbacks. And so we have a presentation.
Yes, thank you, Chair Iacopone, and good to see you all again, commissioners. As our chair just summarized, the project we have before you, 99 Devonshire Boulevard, requesting design review and a variance related to a second-story addition to the existing single-story, single-family residence. And specifically, those exceptions are to the required stream and front setbacks, which we'll go over in just a moment. The project location is on the southeast side of Devonshire, across from Moulton Avenue. It's a unique lot in a few ways, which jump right into it, but first let's go over the area a bit more. So to the left of the residence is the RM59 district. So there's 25 Devonshire and also a very similar building at 17 Devonshire. We'll reference the style of these in just a moment, but you can see these are existing buildings, 2 stories, the second story aligned above the first story at the front elevation. To the right, we have 115 Devonshire, where again, you can see this kind of unique condition of the story above coming actually over the garage, which again is pretty unique. And then the view across the street, again, all the other lots other than the 25 Devonshire lot are RS6 that adjoin the property. So our 2 requests tonight for your consideration, the design review and variance. We're going to begin with the design review considerations. But before getting into design more, I think it's important to start with the specific constraints on this site. Here you can see the proposed site plan under us here. So you can see the lot has a very horizontal orientation along that front elevation, along that front property line. It's about 286 feet all the way across. The depth then ranges from about 45 feet to a maximum depth of about 75 feet, where that towards the right of the property there. To the rear of the property is Pulgus Creek, which brings in our stream creek setback issue. And you can see the existing property is oriented pretty close to that front property line. So for reference, you can see here in green, we have the top of the creek bank, and then we have what would be the normally required 25-foot stream setback with the blue line. Per San Carlos Municipal Code, Chapter 1814, any development is required to be set back a minimum of 25 feet from the top of a creek bank or at a distance specified by the Planning Commission, which brings us to you here this evening. As you can see, that existing residence is pretty well situated within the required stream setback. So as a means of adding to the residence, they're proposing not to increase that footprint of the building, but to go up with it. Another consideration on this project, we have 2 very large protected trees to consider. So if you've seen any of the front elevations or gone by this property, you are of course familiar with the large redwood at the front. It measures over 80 inches. We also have an oak tree in the rear yard that measures over 32 inches. I've overlaid the normally required protection zones on this project, so you can see again, the existing house is well situated, especially with respect to the redwood within that protection zone. So challenge here for coming up with a project of not necessarily increasing that encroachment or having additional impacts to those trees. This project has been reviewed by the city arborist, and we have some additional considerations and conditions added as part of that review, including the requirement for hand trenching in any of the TPZ areas if there is going to be excavation work, which we do not have any of note for this project, and also with specifications related to the protective fencing for both these trees. So with that in mind, we have this very horizontally oriented lot. We have these stream setbacks to contend with. We have these trees to contend with. So the applicant worked closely with staff to come up with an ultimate design that would meet their needs for the addition while not increasing the footprint of the residence and also achieving an attractive design that meets the design review criteria. So here you can see our front and rear elevations for the house. So the front, we have the first 2 stories lined on top of each other, and then a little bit of a setback in the rear for that second story. The little bit I called out there in the front, so we are essentially keeping the existing setbacks with the exception of this little bit of roof overhang over the front door. So that front door is slightly recessed in currently, and this roof overhang is being added to kind of add to the sense of a welcoming entry, and also bring that entry closer in conformance with our normal requirements for front entry. So that's part of our kind of second part of the variance request for the front setback exception. And here you can see our left and right side elevations. So that gives you a sense of, again, as far as on the rear, how we're a little step back in, and then how things are aligned on the front. Here's a proposed rendering showing the proposed color palette. We'll jump into materials in just a second. But again, you can see a lot of thought given as far as introducing secondary materials window placement to add a bit of articulation along the front and kind of break up this front wall, along with that little bit of an entryway feature. And our proposed materials, so we have stucco, proposed in 2 shades, as well as this horizontal cedar wood siding. We also have a TP membrane roof, and I believe those black accents are painted metal. I do also want to note, of course, as you've seen, compared to our existing residence, we have a bit of an update with the design. So much more of a contemporary look, but certainly not something that is out of the ordinary for recent projects that's been approved. Now, for our variance findings, there are 4 findings that need to be met for the variance. The first related to exceptional or extraordinary circumstances for the property, which we've gone over a bit, but we'll review in just a moment. The second, that it's necessary to prevent a physical hardship. The third, that the project will not be detrimental to other properties or projects. And the fourth, that's consistent with the zoning code and general plan. So as we covered a bit, we have really 3 key things to contend with on this property. 1, the horizontal orientation. 2nd, the stream. And then 2, those large protected trees. So given all of that, really the only feasible option for improving upon or adding to the residence is to go upwards. And we think the applicant has proposed a project that provides a aesthetic, attractive home, and also enables them to enjoy closer to what would be their full development rights in the town. Consider that were this lot not situated with the creek or not contending with these front setback or tree issues, based on a lot size of over 15,000 square feet, the normal permitted floor area would be 50% of that, or over 7,700 square feet. The proposed total square footage of this property after the addition will be about 4,795 square feet. So all in all, we're about 3,000 square feet below that maximum size, and we're also 4 feet below our normal allowed height. So I think we're finding a good kind of in-between balance here. Now, considering the potential creek impacts, the town did contract with Make Inc. to prepare a biological resources evaluation. That was completed in July this year. They found that it will not have adverse impacts, or minimal impacts that is, as the site is already developed. It's located in an urbanized area. There's no substantial change to the site conditions, as we're not increasing that footprint of the existing house. Now, the consultant did also include recommended best management practices for the construction related to where materials can be stored, related to protecting that creek during the course and after construction. Those have also been included in the draft conditions of approval in attachment 1. The applicant conducted their own public outreach first as part of this project and held a meeting on October 30th of this year. There were 3 attendees at that meeting. A couple raised concerns regarding the alignment of the 2nd story directly above the 1st story along the front elevation. Permit me to flip back to our rendering. Now, considering the neighborhood context, which as we discussed going back a little further, so 25 Devonshire, the applicant also provided other examples, 17 Devonshire, 6 Devonshire, a few other listed and included in the plans in attachment 2. This orientation of the 1st story, or excuse me, the 2nd story, even with the 1st story, is pretty consistent throughout the neighborhood. So we found it to meet that criteria for starters. And also it allows the project, of course, to meet its objectives. The city also mailed public notice to all neighbors within 300 feet. We received a few comments from those same individuals who had contacted the applicant initially. Similar comments related to those design considerations, the size of the house, construction traffic impacts, what impacts might be made to the redwood tree, as well as a few comments about the overall neighborhood outreach. And again, I think pretty common theme in any project, people always want more notice that is normally required. So given all of that, and especially given the unique situation on this lot and the unique conditions, We certainly don't have a lot of variance applications. We tend to discourage them, but staff thought if there was ever a project that kind of checks those boxes for a variance, this certainly falls into that category. So we're recommending approval, and should you choose to go with that recommendation, here's the motion. I'm available for questions. Our applicant, Hayang Datwani, is also here. I think she'll have a few remarks, and then herself and the property owners are here for questions as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Hey, Young, good evening. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I am the designer, Hayang Datwani, and also proud resident and member of the San Carlos community. I would like to thank the commissioners for hearing our variance case tonight, and also thank staff member Ralph Robinson and the planning staff for putting together this thorough presentation. I'm also grateful that the city of San Carlos has created this variance specifically for properties like 99 Devonshire. At this time, I'd like to introduce the homeowners, Grace Wardhana and Kailash Kumar. They would like to share a little about themselves and their background as it relates to this project.
Great, thank you. Welcome, thanks for coming up tonight.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I want to echo what Hayang mentioned, which thank you so much for having this review. And also thank you so much, Ralph, for preparing the case, and working with Hayang has been a delight as well. Just a little bit about ourselves. My name is Grace Wardana, and my husband, Kailash Kumar. We have been proud members, proud residents of San Carlos since 2005, which was shortly after we got married and had to decide where to build our lives. And having both attended college at Stanford, we decided to make our lives here in the Peninsula Bay Area, and of the towns that we visited all the way from San Mateo all to Mountain View, really fell in love with San Carlos with its small town feel and just the downtown area, the charming downtown area, its access to good schools, which we thought in at the time it was just, a future thought in our minds should we decide to build a family. And I guess fast forward 17, I guess how many years? 18 years. We now have 2 children, 2 daughters, a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old. Both are attending schools in the San Carlos School District, and just really could not be happier living here in San Carlos, and plan to be here as long as we can. We live in 99 Devonshire, the property that was mentioned, and we have a multi-generational living situation. Kailash's parents moved in with us, I guess, ever since my younger daughter was born, so it's since 2009. And as the family has grown, I think so has our need for space, and hence the reason why we're thinking that this additional space could come in really helpful. Another reason is my parents, who currently reside out of the country, are also getting along in age, and we're thinking that they might also have long-term visitation needs in the future, and so we're planning for that as well. Did I miss anything, Kailash?
No, I think.
No? Okay. Oh, I think one other thing I wanted to add is, as you may have seen from the design, I think we're both really fans of modern contemporary design, and that was one reason why we also wanted to kind of update the look of the current house, and also a reason why we're working with Hayang, who aligns with us in terms of our design aesthetics. So.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity.
Great, thank you very much, and always great to hear from the homeowners.
I just wanted to explain a little about the concept. It was really about sustainability, timelessness, and to increase curbside value to the block and neighborhood. These are the factors that we took into consideration when creating the design, selecting the materials, and rendering the finished product. And we just want to say thank you again. And in view of everything presented today, we seek your endorsement to move forward in support of the growth and revitalization of our San Carlos community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, let's start with any clarifying questions for Ralph, for the applicant's homeowners. Commissioner Castaneda.
Yes, I have a question. This is obviously well within the creek variance, and, that's been there and grandfathered in. And then you've got the tree. In the environmental review, was any consideration given to the effect of the added weight of the building on the soil that would affect the tree and also affect the stability of the creek bank?
Yeah, so there's two parts of that. So first with the biological resources, so with the consultant report that was done, that focuses on the creek specifically and, the impacts of the additional construction on the creek. So again, that consultant found those impacts you're describing to be minimal, and so they, didn't find a reason to object to this project. Specific to the tree, our arborists review the project with respect to all the normal best practices. It's pretty common that we have second-story additions that end up in a tree protection zone. Obviously, this is an interesting one that the tree is so large, but that said, the design of the building, of course, and there's no anticipated excavation work, so it's anticipated that what's there is going to be able to support this addition pretty well. And of course, in the course of the structural plans and all those additional steps with the building permit, the city arborists will continue to review and check in on this project along the way, just again to check for those potential impacts, and again instituting all those best practices that he has to follow. So.
Okay, so the existing foundation is considered able to bear this additional weight without an effect on those?
Yes, and should that change, then of course, then we would, do all the necessary next steps as far as the arborist review or the structural review, and again, whether that would change, any resulting approvals here if there was additional work that was required. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Roof, sorry.
My question is kind of similar to Commissioner Castaneda's regarding the foundation, because I have some experience with putting a second story on a house in San Carlos and was surprised at how much additional foundation work was required to meet the seismic standards. Involved putting lots of drilling holes that were like 30 feet down into the ground and big blocks of pouring concrete to stabilize the one-story house in order to allow a second story to be put on. So I wonder if that has been, whether soil, maybe it's premature, but if there's a soil engineer and civil engineer have sort of backed up your assumption that no substantial foundation work would be needed yet, or is that an open question?
Yeah, I think fair to call it an open question. So when we do get to building permit, that's when we will involve soils reports and those qualified individuals. But certainly they would be able to speak to it a lot better than I could. Certainly, expertise is more just in the shape of the box, certainly, than how to make the box stand up. But as I mentioned, along each of these steps, there's pretty well prescribed, if there are mitigation measures that need to be taken, as well as if we were to ever get in a situation where there were either significant demolition or significant addition that need to be added, then again, do we maybe, come back to a situation where we need to reevaluate the project. That said, I think unique conditions on the property, but certainly not unique in that we have an existing one story, right, adding a second story. So, our staff, our building department, our public works department, they're very well versed as far as, those considerations. And they're always prepared to, make sure things are being followed the way they need to be. So, yeah.
Can you remind me how far in feet the tree is from the front of the house?
Yes, it is. Let me pull up the site plan. I don't know if we had it labeled here. I would have to pull up my Bluebeam on this, but based on the measurement here, do you have that handy, offhand? Great. I think it's around 7-8 feet, if I'm recalling correctly.
It's past the sidewalk,
Mhm.
right? It's outside of the outside of the front gate.
Yeah, outside of the gate, inside of the sidewalk.
Yes.
And the gate is about 7 feet,
Yes,
or 7.5 feet.
right.
So,
It's about 8 feet, I would say, from the edge of the tree to the center might be about 10.
okay. Yeah, I can get you a more specific measurement. I don't have that in front of me, but it's about 8 feet. So, yeah.
About 8 feet, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Based on the gate being at 7.5 and then the tree being just beyond the gate. So,
I have a second unrelated question. Should I ask that now?
Yes, please.
The house, existing house, and of course the newer two-story one is right on top of the creek. You look down and the creek's right. It's a steep bank and the creek is there. So my question is kind of a legal one, in that if we, as a planning commission, give approval to add the second story onto the house, are we sort of endorsing that nothing bad is going to happen if there's a flood through that creek? Or, I mean, so is the city potentially at risk, where a big mass of water flows down that creek and washes the house out? Is the fact that we endorsed providing the variance and endorsed the building, kind of put the city at any risk?
That doesn't create any liability for the city. We have immunity from decisions like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'll just add a little color to that. I know again, I mentioned our public works or building department, but our building codes in general in this area in California, we're talking about those stringent in the country, certainly when it comes to those potential issues, because we deal with it probably more than anybody else in the country, of course. So I will say, if it was some event to cause the house to be compromised, then I would imagine everybody on that block is also in trouble. It'll be independent of
Indeed.
this project. So yeah.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hopefully that won't happen.
Vice Chair Clemens.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a couple of clarifying questions. The process whereby the applicant held their own public meeting made me think that the new process for using single-family objective design standards and that new outreach process was employed for this property. And I just wanted clarification, I guess, from staff, whether the ODS does pertain to this property.
No, it is not. So ODS will go into effect for our new applications as of December 13th. So anything prior to that is still under the current
Thank you.
standards.
So new
Yes.
filings after December 13th. Thank you for the reminder. And I wanted to ask, one of the features that you're trying to create some more depth for the entryway does remind us of what the ODS was trying to get to. So could you just clarify again how large the overhang is and whether the front setback measurement in the staff report includes that overhang or really pertains to the rest of the building?
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so that front setback is to the face of the building, so the existing exterior. So then this overhang is going to be 1.5 feet into that. So that's really what the additional front setback exception is for. And if I'm recalling correctly, I think it's about 2 feet 9 inches for that current step in to the front door. So normally we require that depth of 5 feet. So we're going from 2 feet 9 inches to about, 4 feet 3 inches, if I'm doing my math correctly, right? So we're getting closer to that standard, but that section does also allow us to permit entryways that don't totally comply again if we're getting closer to the standard. So.
All right, thanks. One last question, which is, I saw from some comments in the packet that they'd been commenting on the lack of articulation on the front elevation, and wanted to ask for clarification if what is before us today has iterated over time, and if so, how?
Yes, it has iterated. I might defer to Hae Young, as she's been obviously, of course, with this project the whole way, and we did have some other staff involved earlier on that I kind of picked up things up on. And I can certainly have us pull up some of those earlier iterations if it would help. But hey, do you want to try that? Thank you.
When we first started this project, I had a lot of questions of whether what the parameters were. So I met with the planning team. I met with a couple different planners, and on their recommendation, they have been cases where on hillside overlay, they allow properties to have a front facade that goes straight up, but they had a recommendation that on the sides and on the back that there should be an articulation. So that's where the overall, I guess, form and size had started, and that is the direction that we took.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Vice Chair Clements. Commissioner Garvey.
Thank you, Chair. And Hae Young, just to follow up on that, so at the end, at the sides, there's a 5-foot setback on one and a 6-foot setback on the one's on the right side, one's on the left side. So that came from some of the discussions with the neighbors who wanted to see it stepped in a little bit.
It was more discussions with the planning team,
Okay.
the planning staff. Yes.
Yeah, that seemed like a good idea, and you brought it in a fair amount.
Yes.
on both sides.
Yes.
I had a design question, so maybe this is for you. I don't see any exterior lights on any of the renderings. I appreciate that you've used a lot of different colors and materials to break up the massing. I think that's really nicely done. My question is there any exterior lighting that's going to be affixed to the house that too could help not only make a statement, but break up the massing?
That is a great point, Commissioner Garvey, and I'm hoping that we can add lighting to the overhang over the front entry door. There will be, so we haven't dove into electrical yet because we need to go through planning first, and all the electrical will be added in the next phase during structural. And we are definitely planning to add lighting around the perimeter of the front, back, and sides.
I think that would be a nice idea, and I'll defer to you and staff as to where it would go on either side of the garage or on either side of the door, or maybe up on that overhang instead of the front door, possibly something way down on the left to balance it out. Okay, or even uplights. But I appreciate that we're just not there yet in the process.
Yes.
Okay. Those are my only questions so far. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Garvey. Just a process question for staff, if I can, and that is, I have to say that in time here in the commission, this is the first time I've done a variance like this. And so when do the plans like landscaping or lighting, when are they reviewed and how are they reviewed? Because we're being asked for design review, but apparently it's only an elevation and not some of the other features that might impact the way it looks in the neighborhood.
Yes, so as far as landscaping, the proposal is to keep the existing landscaping in place. So no new landscaping to speak of there. And then as far as the lighting, it's, at least as far as with our staff and RDRC level, it's pretty typical that lighting is not finalized until the building permit submittal, and that's why we always include that condition related to the requirement for downlighting and dark sky compliant fixtures. So I'd say that the lighting is pretty normal as far as at this stage, and at a lot of those locations will be dictated by building code requirements, you have to have lighting for every door, that sort of thing. And usually people don't go beyond that. And then as far as the landscaping, there are proposals to keep what's existing, but again, I think that's an area where, if you wanted to add conditions to the effect of that, because we're talking about increasing the massing, that's something we could do within the scope of this meeting, certainly. So,
Thank you very much. That's a helpful answer. Commissioner Garvey?
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on that, Ralph, if you could put up the rendering that looks like the house.
Yes.
Yeah. That is the house. This is a follow-up on the landscaping issue that was raised, and I see that there's nothing additional that's added yet. I drove by the house yesterday. I didn't look at the landscaping. I looked at the tree and I looked at the existing house. The area that I'm thinking about is way over on the left, to the left of that window on the first floor. It's a big empty area. I couldn't remember if there's already a nice green bush there, and if there isn't, that might be a nice place to put something big and green and fluffy, just to kind of break up that end and bring the house in just a little bit. And frankly, it wasn't a detail that I looked at yesterday. So that's more of a comment, I guess, than a question as to when you do think about the landscaping, if you want to make any changes, that might be an area where you could add something nice and green and 5 feet tall or something like that.
yeah, certainly. And if you guys wanted to codify that a little more, make it a little more official, certainly we could, add some condition to the effect of, improving the landscaping design, subject to staff review or based on direction provided by you all this evening. So,
Thank you. That's all I had, Chair.
Great. Thank you for those follow-ups, Commissioner. And I thank you for the offer, Ralph. And I think when we get to our discussion, we'll see if there's a drive or a request to talk about landscaping, or we're okay. So we'll come to it. Yes, Commissioner Garvey, please.
And I'm noticing from the rendering that that's actually where the gas line is and the utility box. Maybe the landscaping could come forward a little bit so that you could still access that, and it covers it, so it's not visually there. Okay, thank you.
Very good. I think we should move to public comment. We don't have anyone here in the audience, so Lynette, we'll come to you, and for anyone who might be joining from home who would like to participate, we're going to give you 30, 45 seconds to please raise your hand on Zoom. At that time, Lynette will record that you would like to be heard this evening, and then we'll go through callers who will be joining us remotely. So, Lynette, at this point, do we have any hands raised?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, we'll give it another 10, 9, 8. And now?
There's still none.
Okay. I think with that, I'd entertain a motion to close public comment.
I'll make a motion that we close the public comment period.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Garvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda?
Yes.
Commissioner Roof?
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements?
Yes.
And Chair Iacoponi?
Yes. Very good. Why don't we maybe start with Commissioner Garvey? Maybe two thoughts. Comments on the project and where you are with regard to approval, and then if, as we were discussing, if there are any conditions that you would like to add specifically, put them out there and we can take them up as a group.
All right, thank you, Chair. This was a very challenging lot and a very challenging project. I liked a couple of things about this project. I particularly like that there's no increase in the building footprint. I liked the overhang over the front porch. It does, as you mentioned in the packet, create more of a porch feel. And I thought that from a design standpoint, it also looked really nice where it is in that, over the front door, nice length. I thought the window placement on the second floor really helped to break up the massing, and there's such a long amount of massing, so I thought there was some good work done there thinking about all those windows. I liked all the different materials, the textures, and the colors. It helps with this long frontage, and it also aligns with what the city is asking for with objective design standards and giving someone who walks or drives by an opportunity to see different colors and materials and textures, and this project does that. I think the flat roof line brings down the mass. I also really liked seeing neighborhood support for making sure that that redwood tree in the front yard is protected. From the variance standpoint, I believe that the project meets all 4 of the findings that need to be met. And I would be in support, if my fellow commissioners would agree, to having a condition added that staff and the design team and the homeowners give some attention to the front landscaping, particularly in that area on the left, just to help soften it a little bit, green it up, and kind of reduce the long frontage from a visual standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Garvey. Commissioner Castaneda.
Yes, I like the fact that the second story is being put near the front and not in the back. I mean, I think that does address some of the issues of not adding more weight in the back. So I think that was a good choice. And I also like the roof design. I think is done very well. I read very carefully the tree protection plans, and they look really quite good if that's adhered to, and also the plans for protecting the creek and making sure there's no materials that get into the creek. I think those plans are good. I would support Commissioner Garvey's request on having landscaping, and I think she's picked the exact right place for it, and covering the utilities there will also be helpful using greenery. So overall, I do support the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Castaneda. Commissioner Roof?
I like the design. I think it's compatible with the neighborhood. It looks nice. Personally, I like the modern design. It looks good with the tree there. I think it and the massing all seems appropriate for the site, and there's adjacent properties up the street a little that are also 2-story and have a flat front, so it's kind of consistent. So I don't have any concerns with the building itself. As far as the tree protection, it seems like if there's ever a case where you have to be careful about a heritage tree, this would be one of them. And the tree protection plan rules. So generally, we have to rely. Okay, if it's a heritage tree, then there's a set of rules that are defined how you go about saving it, and it's. And so if there's trenching needed, it needs to be done by hand. And if there's roots, you try to go around them. But the construction guys are there, and the cement trucks ready to pour cement. They're not going to, if the design requires impinging on the tree, the design is probably going to win at that point in time. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I wish there was some way to specify that the structural plan take into account that the tree is there, and not, so in other words, don't plan to excavate in the area close. You have to put the pillars that go under the ground further away and then bridge them above ground, something, as opposed to kind of mindlessly putting the pillars at a standard interval, one of which is right in front of the tree, because the pillar will win in the end if that's part of the plan, is my suspicion. So so that, I don't know, I mean, maybe the staff could address how the concern I've raised would be handled, but if something that would be, that the excavation and any foundation work that may turn out to be needed would take into account the sensitivity of the tree. That's my one concern. So I guess I've expressed it well enough. I'll see if the other commissioners agree, and maybe you can add some color here.
Yeah, no, and if I may, so doing that, so you did mention the hand trenching requirement. So that is a blanket requirement for any digging within the TPZ, and as you can see, the whole house is essentially in the TPZ. So prior to doing any sort of work like that, they would have to do that hand excavation per the arborist comment. I have seen cases where it's required in the course of that. They're also required to have an on-site arborist or something to that effect. So that's something I could either bring up to our city arborist as far as if that's something that he would typically condition or not, but again, something for discussion as well, possibly. So
Maybe if I could, and sorry to go out of turn here, but Commissioner Roof has raised the question with an example of to support a second floor needing a different kind of footing arrangement. So I think we're all anticipating you're going to have to dig down and you're going to have to pour a couple of yards under each column that goes up. Do you anticipate those will be done within the existing footprint of the home or outside of it? And therefore, will any disturbance be kind of within the confines of what's already there, or will it be outside of it?
yeah, so this project is based on all this work being done within that existing footprint. So were they going outside of that, then at that point we're essentially beyond the bounds of what the variance has granted at that point, right? So the variance is granting the second story addition based on this existing footprint and going up from there and not going beyond that. So were we to go beyond that, then we're getting to a case where we're now outside of the bounds of what this would permit the applicant to do. So they'd have to come up with either some other solution or adjust the product from there.
And through the chair, on packet page 21, there is a condition of approval, condition number 8, correct me if I'm wrong, Ralph, but it speaks to the foundation stage of the construction and requirements that needs to be verified in writing by a licensed civil engineer, that the work is being done within the minimum setback requirements for both single family and the stream. That's how I'm reading condition number 8.
Yes.
And I might add, just looking at the conditions, condition 5, I think, addresses the review of the tree protection plan. It must be approved by the city arborist with all the approved tree protection measures shown on improvement plans. So before it gets submitted, the measures to protect the trees need to be included in the plans. And then there's a secondary review that the arborist's recommendation also has to be approved to the satisfaction of the planning division. So I think before they go, but before the plans are submitted, there's going to have to be tree protection measures included on the plans. So if anything's identified that structurally or otherwise that needs to be done near one of those trees, they're going to have to address it.
From my perspective, the fact that the variance we're granting only goes to the existing perimeter of the house is somewhat reassuring. I know on my house they put big cement blocks outside the house because it was cheaper, and it didn't matter in that case. But if you did that in front of the redwood tree, obviously you'd be very close to it. So the plan, there's some enforcement that the structural work would have to be done under the house. That's reassuring, as well as having the arborist, both the city and the applicant's arborist sort of have to sign off on it. Their reputation is at risk. Then that's once they see the final plans for what the foundation would have to look like, then that, I think they would be in a position to address the concerns that I've raised. So I think with all this discussion, I'm personally am comfortable enough. And appreciate patience that we draw all this stuff out so that I know that there's people in the neighborhood that are concerned, and it's kind of a landmark tree, so it's worth, to me, it was important to have this discussion, but now I personally am satisfied. And so overall, I'm supportive.
Thank you, Commissioner Roof, and I appreciate everyone's work to sort of clarify the scope and the impact and the protections that we're approving. Vice Chair Clements.
Thank you, Chair. I did see the tree protection zone and all of the arborist requirements, and I'm satisfied that these lovely trees will be adequately taken care of with all of the permit conditions. So I hadn't been worried about that, but it's worth asking about. I do like the modern design of the property, and I thought that the photos in the packet did support the fact that there are other properties on Devonshire that have similar design elements to that. I strongly support homes adding second stories where possible. I think it's really an efficient use of space, and especially when footprints don't increase. So I'm really thrilled that you're able to do that. Just go up and create the space you need for your family. Where I grew up, everyone had 2 stories on their single-family homes with much larger lots. And it was a like starter home kind of subdivision. It was not unusual, and I feel like it's kind of unusual in California, and I think that's a little strange. So thank you for adding a story. I think that's great. I also looked up the paint color on my computer. It reads a lot less green than it does on the screen. It's a lovely shade of darker, medium gray with a lighter gray. So I really like the choices of colors together with the wood tones. I do appreciate the front door overhang, and I really like the variety of windows that were used. I think there's so many differences, but it's all it all goes together and it's coherent. So in terms of being built in the riparian corridor, the fact that the building was already there, so it is an existing non-conforming property line or property footprint, and the no additional balconies are being created, and the best practices of having something in the riparian corridor, I'm not sure how they would be enforced. I know the document suggested that best practices of the riparian corridor are to, but I wasn't sure that there are permit conditions for how you operate the property. There's some around building, right? So I guess that's a question to staff, just to clarify what is in place in the permit conditions.
Yes, so BMPs or best management practices are standard essentially with just about any building permit, and especially with construction to this extent. In this case, we have some additional BMPs included, suggested by the biologist, and so those will be included as well. Having said that, so our building inspectors and throughout that process, it's a very kind of standard thing for them as far as checking for these issues and enforcing them, especially if there's any construction going on in the wet weather months. This is something I've not here, but I've done it in other jurisdictions, putting on boots and going around and checking wattles and, the little barriers and all that sort of thing. So that is something that does take place pretty standard throughout course of construction, and checking for those things, you have the right gravel and you're not washing things off and all those sorts of.
So you're saying that it does end up as permit conditions, and that there would be validated. Okay. So that sounds good. I mean, I don't see any additional risk to the waterways given the particulars of the situation. And that the findings are met in the analysis. I would be in favor of adding the condition for additional landscaping to soften the front elevation. And with that, I think it's going to be a lovely property. It already is lovely, but it's going to also be a new, lovely, taller property. So I would support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I think, I agree that the conditions for the variance, the 4 conditions are met. Regarding the existing design, my colleagues made all the points that I thought of, so very good. And then with regard to Commissioner Garvey's proposal, I would offer, let's just see if this might work, condition of approval that the applicant submit a landscape plan for the front yard as part of their approval process to be reviewed by staff. And I think both that gives latitude for working between the homeowner and staff to find maybe just a little additional planting to soften some of the elements and not be so prescriptive as to specifically where they go, but you've heard the comments, so you'll take them into consideration, I'm sure. So I guess with that, we would just add one condition of approval, and that is a landscape plan, and I would propose for the front, since we're not talking about the back, be developed and submitted as part of the building permit process, if that's the right way to phrase it. Are you okay with that? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Could I ask, though, I want to make sure that the landscape plan does not add significantly to cost for the project. I guess that's a question for the applicant or applicant's rep.
Yeah, I mean, we've already decided landscaping, so if you go by, we got like 2 big trees, but hopefully they'll become big to add some privacy on the left side, and then a lot of flowers. I love the lavender flowers, so we've got a bunch of lavender. So we've this discussion. And,
Okay.
I love the redwood tree also, by the way. I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah, it's all lovely. Yeah, so as long as we don't want to be burdensome in terms of adding additional requirements for a single-family home, personally, that's what I think. But it sounds like you've already thought through it, and perhaps getting that down on paper will not be too burdensome. Okay, thank you for that feedback.
Very good. So can we have the motion? Does anyone want to take a lead? Commissioner Garvey?
Thank you, Chair. I move that the Planning and Transportation Commission grant approval for design review and a variance to allow the construction of a second-story addition to an existing single-story residence at 99 Devonshire Boulevard, APN 049-331-020, within the normally required stream and front setbacks for the reasons incorporated in the staff report, and with the conditions in the draft variance and code compliance certificate, with an additional condition that the applicant submit a landscape plan for the front yard to be reviewed by staff.
I'd second that motion.
Commissioner Garvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda?
Yes.
Commissioner Roof?
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements?
Yes.
And Chair Iacoponi?
Yes. Congratulations. Good luck with your project. Thanks, staff, for a great presentation, and we'll look forward to seeing it.
Sure, if you want to. Congratulations.
The Planning and Transportation Commission's action will be final unless appealed to the City Council within 10 days of the date of action. The deadline to file an appeal is 5 p.m. on Thursday, December 14th, 2023. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, reports, correspondence, and general information. 7A, report on recent city council actions.
Yes, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. For this evening, on item 7A, report on recent city council actions, I would like to share that a week ago, on Monday, November the 27th, the city council adopted a resolution to establish a pedestrian mall on the 700 block of Laurel Street. So action would permanently close that particular block of Laurel Street. And in conjunction with that, the council further introduced an ordinance that establishes a new chapter in the city's municipal code, and that chapter is 12.40, which establishes a chapter on pedestrian malls. So I did want to share that with the commission, and this is one of our very first implementation pieces of the Downtown Specific Plan project. Also that evening, the council approved a new hotel known as Hotel Indigo at 501 Industrial Road. And those are my updates for report on recent city council actions.
Great, thank you. Item B, Planning and Transportation Commission comments or reports. None, thank you. Item C, correspondence.
None this evening.
Very good. And D, planning staff comments, reports, and updates of current projects.
Yes, staff has a few items for this evening. First, I'll start with the Planning and Transportation Commission calendar and your regular schedule of meetings. At this stage, we do not have any items ready to go for your next meeting, which is scheduled for December 18th. So given that, we are going to be canceling Monday, December 18th. So you can remove that off your calendar. We'll follow up with an email just to confirm that, and an cancellation agenda will be posted accordingly. And then that means the Commission's first meeting of 2024 and next meeting will not occur until Tuesday, January 16th. Because of the holiday furlough and closure of City Hall, we are also going to be canceling the regular scheduled meeting of January 2nd. So your first meeting and only meeting in January is going to be on Tuesday, January 16th, and we will send out an email reminder on that. The other thing I would like to share is that this week, it's a very exciting week for staff in the community because we're hosting 2 community opportunities to engage in discussions about the future of downtown and downtown transformation. We have 2 community workshops scheduled this week. The first is on Wednesday, December the 6th. This is a virtual option, and it will be from 6:00 p.m. and go until 7:30 p.m. And all registration details for anyone that wants to join in on that and get the link, you can join at sancarlosdowntownplan.com. So that's sancarlosdowntownplan.com. The in-person event or option that we are hosting will be next Saturday, which is December the 9th, and that location will be in downtown, right in the heart of downtown, right next to Pete's. The address is 677 Laurel. Some folks will know that address as the site of the former living room. So the property owner was gracious enough to allow us to use that space to be able to have this workshop right where we're going to be talking about all things downtown. So that in-person event runs from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. We have 2 presentations during that period. The first presentation will be at 10:30 a.m. in the morning, and then we'll have another presentation at 1:30 in the afternoon. We're encouraging folks to RSVP for that. You can also do that online at sancarlosdowntownplan.com, but also walk-ins are certainly welcome, and we hope that anyone listening does come down because we have some really exciting and bold new plans to share, and we really want to get the entire community to look at these and give us their feedback. The downtown is important for everyone, and we want to get as much public attention on this as possible. So share again and again with your San Carlos networks. We greatly appreciate that. And that is it for this evening.
Excuse me, Chair, could I ask
Great.
staff
Thank you
a
very
question?
much.
I'm sorry, could I ask Lisa a question? Lisa, in terms of planning commissioners attending, do we have to limit to the virtual session? Could we just go through who is registered for the virtual and if there are any Brown Act problems?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. That is correct. When we have a city-sponsored event, and Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, we are limited to 2 members of the commission. So and some of you have replied, and I'll organize who that is, and I'll let you know if there's any overlap that we need to address. But we can have 2 commissioners attend the virtual meeting. And then during the in-person December 9th event, at any one time, we can only have 2 commissioners in the room per the Brown Act. Anything to add to that, Greg, or did I get it?
Well, I mean, I think these community meetings, it's hard to create a formal agenda for them, and so that's why we're not, they're not being posted as a planning commission meeting. They're the downtown planning or the community meeting, so that's why that limitation applies. And so staff will try to coordinate and let you know.
Okay, so we'll look for that email then.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would like to
Thanks.
follow up. Of course, usually after we do the community input, we do make rounds with the Planning Commission and City Council in a study session context. So all of this will be coming forward to the commission for your review and input at a date not early in the next year, but I'd say by sometime in the first quarter of next year, where staff will share all of the input we received from the community and share the concepts with the commission as well. So this will definitely come before you. And then one last thing, and I'm the last one speaking, I know other people will join me as well. I just wanted to wish everyone a wonderful holiday season and a very, very happy new year, in case we don't see each other, but I have a feeling we will by until January. So thank you. Happy holidays.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, and to you and all the staff as well. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.
Well, there's one more item. There's the general public comment.
I keep forgetting we moved it. Of course, agenda item number 8, public comment, is limited to items not on the agenda. Commission may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act, Government Code Section 54954.2, or the Commission's general policies, to refer items to staff for attention or have a matter placed on a future Commission agenda for a more comprehensive action or report. So for anyone following along at home, thank you for your patience, and sorry for apparently stepping away too soon. Raise your hand. We'll give you a few seconds here. Lynette will then note whose hands are raised, and we'll take you in turn. Lynette, are there any hands raised?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, and now?
There are still no hands raised.
Very good. I entertain a motion to close public comment.
I move that we close public comment.
Thank you. I'll second.
Commissioner Garvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda,
Yes.
Commissioner Roof,
Yes?
Vice Chair Clemens,
Yes.
and Chair Iacoponi.
Yes. Thank you all very much. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.